Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons in context of the OSR. And specifically today, I want to do a response to Jeff McAleer's video on the Gaming Gang that he did, and the name of that video, which is linked below, is what is the OSR and is it filled with right-wing extremists, right? So first of all, I appreciate your patience because I've been talking about the OSR nonstop, right? And the reason why is I think it's really important to talk about the OSR. First of all, I've been talking about the OSR for years because I've always known they were important. And I think my subconscious mind, one of the reasons why I continue to talk about the OSR is there's really only 3 segments in the tabletop role-playing game industry, and we now know there's always been 3 segments in the tabletop role-playing game industry, and now we know that only 2 of them matter, right? And actually, one of them matters, one of them definitely doesn't matter, and one of them is in a quasi-matter space, right? So let's talk about those 3 segments. D&D matters. It's mattered since the day it was started in 1974. So in my opinion, it's the most important secular product that has ever been created. It is, I think the reality is what it does is it allows humans to explore identity in a way that fundamentally transforms how people live their lives. And in addition to that, it has changed human narrative, how we tell stories, the impact that stories can have, and the value of those stories forever. So D&D matters. Okay, next, indies don't matter. They do not matter. We know that now, right? One of the things is there was a huge dust-up between the OSR and D&D in 2023 OGL Crisis, 2023 Manic Panic. That happened in January of this year, right? And I think the indies don't matter, and here's why. They're playing a million brilliant, beautiful games. They're playing, innovative rules, and they're playing them with rules that don't look like Dungeons and Dragons. And they're playing them in genres that are not American fantasy. And I'll tell you right now, the world don't care. We can barely get, we've struggled to get people to even understand what a table... If you tell people what is Dungeons & Dragons, they'll have an answer. You ask people what is a tabletop role-playing game, you'll be lucky if you get them to say anything other than a video game. They barely even know what the industry is, right? So the indies just don't put up any numbers to matter. The indies do not matter. If you're not playing an American fantasy game and you're not playing with rules that very closely model Dungeons & Dragons, the world does not care. It barely the niche areas of the TTRPG industry care, right? OSR is not the same. OSR is is D&D adjacent, and so they're like, do they matter? And that's the question that's being answered right now. Right now, they barely matter, okay? They quasi-matter. But there's something happening with Kelsey Dion where the OSR, the scruffy barbarians that, are beyond the wall, can be led in by a new Mance Raider, right? And that force could actually do something. And what I need that force to do is become an actual competitor for D&D. And the reason why is D&D has always had a big head, and it's really had no real competitors for a long time. But boy, oh boy, wait until you see the celebrity and glory and shine that D&D is about to get with D&D Honor Among Thieves. We are going into the Hollywood era, baby, and I don't think we're ever going to be able to look back. There's a seismic shift that's coming for Dungeons and Dragons with that D&D Honor Among Thieves. So we need an actual competitor. All right. So Jeff McAleer, yeah. Over on the Gaming Gang, did a video, and he said, what is the OSR, and is it filled with right-wing extremists, right? So first of all, thank you, Jeff. This is an amazing video. I have never seen a better description of what the OSR is and is not than what you put down. It's very genuine. It's very clear, right? It could have been a little more concise, but that's okay, no problem. It's a darn near perfect video. And it really helps me for you to even ask this question, to say, is it filled with right-wing extremists? Because I've said for a long time, the OSR has a lot of problems, serious problems, right? And some problematic people in it, right? So you even bringing this video forward I'm not the only dude shouting, standing in a field shouting something that I think is obvious that everybody else goes, what? Who, us? Right? And so, so your answer was, yes, you're going to find these people here. Yes, there's a lot of right-wing, there is definitely a number of right-wing extremists within the OSR. It's incredibly important and helpful that you said that honestly and openly, and that really helps me, right? I'm gonna answer the same questions you did today. What is the OSR? The OSR is old school rules. Drop all this nonsense of OSR is old school revival, old school renaissance. This has got to end. The fact that the OSR cannot name itself is one of the reasons why it's not taken seriously and why it's never coalesced and never achieved anything of significance, right? The OSR is the old school rules. Why do Scott Garibay, get to say it and just say flat out, OSR is old school rules? Because y'all haven't been able to decide amongst yourselves, right? And indecisive chuckles don't get to determine things. Decisive people do. OSR is old school rules. I'm going to say, I'm going to put it on a shelf right there. Let's end this discussion, right? The other thing is the OSR needs an atom. It needs to be named, right? For a thing to be a thing, it's got to have a freaking name, right? And it is unconscionable that the OSR champions have not even been able to decide among themselves. OSR is old school rules. Let's end that conversation, right? I've set it on a shelf. It's done. Okay? All right. Is the OSR filled with right-stream extremists? Yes, at a value of 51% to 80%, in my humble opinion. That's the problem, and that's why the OSR is so problematic, right? Because I think the majority of it is right-wing extremists, right? And so that is the problem, right? Like, and those right-wing extremists have some incredibly repugnant opinions, right? Which they will more than happy to walk out for you at the first possible, opportunity, right? So here's where we land. Is that their future? No. I think Kelsey Dion can break it, right? Not what she can do is, here's the issue. I think Kelsey Dion could be the reverse Trump, right? Trump took the conservative base in America and made it a horrific group of monster people who abandoned all their values. That's sad to me. I never voted for Trump. Not once. I never will. He's a repugnant monster human in my humble opinion. Okay. But I think Kelsey Dion can take this group of right-wing conservatives and give them a win. And that's the thing that allowed Trump to do what he did. He produced wins. He actually gave us America where there was there's a chicken in every pot and two cars in every driveway, right? And the trains ran on time, right? And we didn't have to worry if we were on the verge of World War III, and we didn't have to worry about a whole host of problems that are outrageously too far too common under President Biden, and this mild apocalypse we now live in because of him. It's just been horrific and horrible and terrible, and under Trump, but Trump won. He did, and that's why people love him. And I think Shadow Dark RPG is going to be a winner, right? And and Kelsey Dion, in my opinion, has the courage to own the name of OSR creator, and I think she's going to have the courage to own the title of OSR king. And I think and I'll tell you right now, I understand a bunch of right-wing conservatives do not want to follow somebody who's not a right-wing conservative. And trust and believe, I don't think for 1 second Kelsey Dion is a right-wing conservative. But they are willing to follow a leader. And she is Hollywood ready. She knows that that presentation counts. And she's already a functioning, winning leader, right? So I think all sins will be forgiven. And the only sins for Kelsey Dion is simply that she's not a right-wing conservative, right? But she is an actual OSR creator. She's proven that with Shadow Dark RPG. She's super intelligent and she's super capable of leadership. And I think the things that the right wing don't like will just fall away like scales from Paul's eyes, right? And they will follow Kelsey Dion into a new space for tabletop role-playing games. And D&D is Dunkin' now, and it needs its Krispy Kreme. It needs a true competitor. And right now, there isn't a true competitor on the board. That's what we learned from the 2023 OGL crisis, in my humble opinion. Every single word of what you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.